Let's talk about FSD v14 Lite for Hardware 3 cars, and let's cut straight to the chase. Is the software better than the previous software version, or is it worse? I ran a poll on X where 1,154 people voted across 24 hours. 70% reported that it's way better than 12.6.4, whereas 30% said it's a regression. Many Tesla Model S and X owners, along with people outside of the US, are still waiting to download and install v14 Lite. And I believe there's a good percentage of people still in the US who haven't received it, even though it's been distributed much wider since July 22nd, 2026. For anyone that's new, what am I even talking about right now? This is all about v14 Lite. It's the latest full self-driving software update for Hardware 3 vehicles from Tesla that were manufactured between 2019 to 2023. It's a software package that Tesla owners have had to pay anywhere between $5,000 to $15,000 to install on their cars, or it's a subscription software that costs $99 a month. This software uses the cameras all around the cars to navigate across city streets and highways with driver supervision during all driving conditions. That means when it's raining outside, when it's dark outside, when it's light outside, windy, whatever it is, the car can drive itself. Tesla's full self-driving is not the same as any other automotive manufacturer's software in the US right now, and it allows the vehicle to stop at stop signs, cross through busy intersections entirely on its own, handle traffic lights automatically, and to drive on the highways all without any input on the steering wheel, brake pedal, or accelerator pedal. All the driver needs to do is pay attention to ensure the car doesn't do anything wrong. And if the driver stops paying attention, the vehicle demands user input to the steering wheel, which means a small nudge to indicate they're paying attention. And if the driver continues to look away from the road, the software disables itself completely to bring the vehicle to a complete stop. Hardware 3 vehicle owners haven't received any substantial software updates that affect the full self-driving capabilities since February 2025, and patience is running thin among many who have been waiting for so long. Some have their pitchforks out after paying so much money and feeling left behind. However, a good percentage of those owners may want to count their blessings for not having it so quickly. And the reason I say that is because even though 70% have reported that it's much better, the lower 30% is very vocal about the issues they're having. Some are so upset that they've sent me messages full of hate, blaming me in particular for praising it too much, believing that I somehow influenced Tesla to roll it out wider when they really should have waited. Now, as I think a lot of my viewers know already, I'm always very transparent and impartial, and I never purposefully hide any of the issues. While I'll admit that I'm an optimistic person and that I have an upbeat personality and want Tesla to succeed, I'm also not afraid to expose any of the problems whenever I come across them. For example, in my first video review of v14 Lite, I demonstrated how it pulled out of my driveway somewhat clumsily and interrupted the flow of traffic on the road behind me. Some cars coming, get honked at. Very awkward. There's a line of cars now behind me, but I also pointed out some issues with the turn signal behavior and talked about how it can't handle parking garages very well. Lastly, I pointed out some safety issues with v14 Lite with regard to parking in parking lots, where it almost hit a pole behind me. Now, before I get into the details here, what are you going to get out of this video today? Well, first, I'm going to cover the top overall impressions of v14 Lite with a high-level summary. Next, I'm going to go over the top 5 issues with v14 Lite, and then I'll be covering the top 5 strengths. Lastly, I'm going to cover what the future looks like for Hardware 3 vehicles as reported on again by Elon Musk in the latest Tesla earnings call, and I'll speculate a little bit about the direction of Tesla's stock performance. So let's get started. Overall impressions of FSD v14 Lite. I can confidently speak on behalf of my own experiences with the software. However, sometimes that's not enough for people. They either don't believe me or they don't want to believe me. It's always funny to me. So to start off this review, I'm going to provide some comments and reflections from the number one person who has driven the most miles on v14 Lite by far, and that's Kobe Pierce. He just hit a 2,000 mile streak with FSD v14 Lite and has been driving for over 10,000 miles throughout the US and Canada, entirely with v14 Lite. He began his journey on July 9th with v14 Lite when it was only released to a few early access owners. And he recently stated on July 28th that although v14 Lite has its quirks, the edge case performance and reaction speed is so much better than version 12.6.4. He goes on to say that while the micro stutters / micro spasms in the newest v14 Lite release is annoying, they aren't unsafe. Now, based on my own experience, I just finished a trip to Niagara Falls, Canada with my family where we drove for over 16 hours across 1,100 miles. It was almost entirely hands-free driving. I got really close to a 1,000 mile FSD streak at one point, and that was before I did some tests with large obstacles to see if it would stop or not going in reverse. You can see the results in the video above. It would have been really nice to have been driving a Model Y for that road trip, I'll have to be honest, which comes with a lot more space and some awesome accessories. I recently reviewed the Model YL that launched in North America this month. It's been on display at a few select locations, including in Illinois. And that brings me to the sponsor of this video, Tlyard, who offers an incredible refrigerator accessory for long trips just like this. The refrigerator for Model Y vehicles from Tlyard fits in your trunk and is sold at a fraction of the cost of the unit that Tesla sells, and it fits in all Model Ys, including the Model YL. It offers 33 liters of space and even doubles as a freezer. You can prepare all your drinks and food ahead of time and enjoy them while you're on the go, at a supercharger, for example. This will save you money overall by not having to buy food while you're traveling, and my favorite part is that the refrigerator can be controlled wirelessly via Bluetooth with an app on your phone. Check the link below and use discount code TechGeek for the maximum discount available. And now back to the video. When I think of FSD v14 Lite from a big picture standpoint, I get pretty excited because it feels very safe and responsive. The software literally feels alive when you're using it. The previous version, 12.6.4, also felt alive, but this version feels even more alive. What I mean by that is that it seems to be processing things more quickly. It's like a young driver versus an old driver. They're both alive, but the younger driver may react a little quicker. He or she may stutter a little bit more, or they may do something strange and then correct themselves really quickly. That's what v14 Lite feels like. Not in a bad way, like a 16-year-old driver that doesn't have any idea what they're doing and they're just getting started, but in a very good way. It's not as sluggish or as smooth or as polished as 12.6.4 may have been, but it responds accurately to specific situations like slowing down for railroad crossings even when the gates aren't down, slowing down reliably for speed bumps on the road, and swerving out of the way for obstacles with finesse. There are some things that would be considered regressions when it comes to v14 Lite, and these can't be ignored. Some people are making a huge deal out of them, so stay tuned for some remedies that I'll share on how you may be able to improve the performance of v14 Lite. Now let's get into the top 5 reported issues with v14 Lite. The first major issue I'm hearing about is the reliability of parking in parking lots, side streets, and driveways. It's important to note that v14 on hardware 4 vehicles isn't perfect either, but it seems that v14 Lite has a harder time seeing objects behind it when you first enable FSD. It has a bad tendency of running them over directly if you're too close to them. Even though the camera in the back will clearly display the object, the car won't slow down for those objects at all. It's pretty surprising to witness, actually, and even more alarming, perhaps, is the challenge with parking in certain situations. More than 50% of the time, the parking is handled well enough to be acceptable, but there's a large percentage of the time when FSD isn't reliable at all. It will park in handicap spaces, it will park on hatched lines and no parking zones, it will park unevenly in spaces, and it will also park crooked. It's always an adventure to see what will happen next, so I'd advise you to keep your foot hovering over the brake pedal in most cases. Now, if you're trying to maintain a streak with FSD and you're unhappy with the parking job, just be very careful not to disengage or you'll reset your streak to 0. By disengaging, I mean jerking the steering wheel or stepping on the brake pedal. To avoid this happening, what you can do is take over entirely when it gets close to parking by quickly putting the car in park just before it begins to park itself in a dangerous situation. For example, when it pivots from going forward to reverse, there's a short moment when the speed reaches 0 that you can quickly put the car in park. From there, you can drive the car manually to position it exactly where you want it. Besides the unreliable nature of the parking, there are some situations where it's not safe at all. I had it almost hit a pole behind me, and it also has a tendency to get a little too close to curbs in certain parking lots. So just be very careful with this new ability and don't blindly trust that it knows what it's doing, because you could create some damage to your car and it could also result in a parking ticket if the car parks itself in an illegal spot, for example. Now let's get into the second issue. That is phantom braking. This is being reported by a lot of people, and it seems to be more exaggerated from certain owners compared to others. So it really depends on the person's definition of phantom braking. How much is too much? It depends on the person's interpretation of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. There are some times when it will stutter or slow down very briefly without slamming on the brakes. In fact, 99% of the time, this is exactly what happens. It will feather the brake pedal to the point where you won't even notice the brake pedal moving at all. Out of those situations, it's usually the driver that notices it more than the passengers, so it's not a huge deal. However, again, it really depends on the individual, and I believe it also depends on the vehicle. This could depend heavily on how clean the glass is in front of the windshield camera. If it's blurry or if the glass is dirty, then the camera may see things that aren't really there. Or it could pick up on various shadows and amplify them to the camera. So it's very important to make sure the glass is clean if this is your number one issue with v14 Lite. You can have the camera area cleaned at a service center, or you can do it yourself if you're brave enough. I created a video on how to do this in the past, but I'm not very proud of the results, even though it's my own tutorial, so I'd rather not share it here, but you can find many examples on YouTube of people showing how to clean it. Now let's get on to the third issue, which is micro acceleration surges. There is an issue that popped up with the latest version of v14 Lite, which is 2026.20.6.11, where you'll notice this especially on the highway, where the car will suddenly accelerate with joy out of nowhere. It literally feels like the car is slipping on a small patch of ice for a brief moment, as the motor is trying to run away from you. This is what's called reverse phantom braking, where the car accelerates very briefly for a short period of time. If you observe the energy bar on the left side of your screen, you'll see a short burst of energy being applied to the motor. I have to laugh a little bit about this one because it's almost like v14 Lite is really excited to be driving down the road, and it's so happy that it skips from time to time. This doesn't create a dangerous situation at all, it just becomes a minor nuisance, and it's unlikely that your passengers will even notice it. I brought it up to my wife on our last road trip, and she had a hard time noticing it even after I pointed it out. In fact, she wouldn't have noticed it unless I had told her about it, but it's definitely an issue that recently emerged with this latest version. The previous two versions, which didn't go wide, did not have it at all, and I'm hopeful that it will be fixed by Tesla in a short amount of time. The fourth issue is the steering wheel wobble, and this is perhaps one of my biggest pet peeves with full self-driving, and it goes back to one of the later software iterations with 12.6.4 for me. The steering wheel has a bad habit of wobbling around as you're going down the road. It's not noticeable to anyone else around you, on the road that is, and it barely affects the trajectory of the vehicle. It's very subtle, but it will sometimes get amplified depending on the road you're traveling on. Some people have reported that the wobble gets worse at certain speeds, but in my experience, the wobble changes mostly depending on the road. If there are a lot of uneven patches or small bumps on the road, for example, or if I go over a bridge that has kind of a graded material underneath, the steering wheel will wobble more than normal. This rarely results in an unsafe situation, but some people have reported how they felt like they were put in danger after going over a bump on the road, since it has a tendency to increase the wobble before it corrects itself. Now, somebody on X commented that it may have to do with wheel alignment, but this is not the case for my vehicle. I believe recalibrating the cameras may alleviate this problem for some people, but it's not a guaranteed solution. Mostly, I believe this is a software issue that needs to be improved. If you use basic autopilot or navigate on autopilot, also known as enhanced autopilot, on the exact same vehicle, the steering wheel doesn't wobble at all. Now, when I talk about wobble, I'm not talking about a rapid shaking movement. I'm talking about a very slow and gradual rocking back and forth. It doesn't create what's called the ping pong effect, where the car will bounce between the lines on the road to stay in its lane. It's just very tiny movements of the wheel. Again, this is more of a minor nuisance than a major issue that should cause concern for safety or ride comfort. And now the fifth and final issue with v14 Lite that deserves some attention here is the extra hesitation at stop signs and intersections. Some users are talking about new hesitation at intersections. They're reporting that v14 Lite is more cautious to leave intersections after arriving. This applies primarily to four-way stops with stop signs all around, but it can also apply to basically any intersection where there's a stop sign. v14 Lite seems to take a little more time than it did in the past to make a decision to move confidently forward, to the right, or to the left. This may also happen at red lights where you can turn right on red. It may stop, creep forward, stop again, then creep again, and then go. Instead of stopping, creeping maybe once if needed at all, and then going. So to my surprise, a lot of people have zero patience for this sort of stuff, and it destroys the entire experience, and they will refuse to use FSD entirely due to one bad experience. However, I'd encourage you to work with the software rather than work against it. What I mean is that you can easily tap on the accelerator pedal to encourage the car to go forward. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, and it doesn't break a streak either. There was a post from Texas Tesla recently who commented that v14 Lite doesn't fight against the driver as much as it used to when you try to encourage the car to move forward. For example, if you pressed on the accelerator pedal to encourage it to go forward in the past with version 12.6.4, sometimes it would pump the brake pedal dramatically immediately after you released your foot from the accelerator pedal. However, with v14 Lite, it tends to go with the flow a little bit more. It has a software response when you let go of the accelerator pedal. It will either continue moving forward with the same trajectory you provided, or it will gradually and gently slow down to begin creeping all over again. So while this final issue may introduce some new hesitation at intersections, I think we can all appreciate how the vehicle responds better to user input with the accelerator pedal. So if you're having issues with v14 Lite, what I would encourage you to do is three things. The first thing is to recalibrate your cameras. The second thing is to do an ADAS reset in the service menu. You can look these up online. I'm not going to go into the details, but the third method you can try is to have your camera cleaned in the front, the windshield rather, by taking it to a service center to have that done. Try those three things, test it out again, and see if you have better results. Now let's talk about the top 5 improvements with v14 Lite. The first one is improved reaction times. v14 Lite has a 37% faster reaction time compared to 1264, and this was proven through a series of tests that I did using CamCut software to analyze the exact moment movement was visually recognized by the naked eye and the time that the longitudinal g-force was tracked as a reaction time from within the vehicle using the telemetry data. I performed these tests across a relatively short period of time with limited resources. Now, some people commented how the tests weren't conclusive enough due to the limited testing, in some cases only 2 samples. However, I'd like to point out that I did the very best I could with the resources and time that I had available. Many people are also commenting on how v14 Lite feels safer and how it seems to react faster than it did before. But as far as I'm aware, I'm the only one who has taken a subjective analysis and turned it into objectively measured test results to get real-world data to compare. It's definitely faster to respond, as is also referenced in the release notes for v14 Lite, and this is something that is really great to see. The second improvement that I've noticed is that the driver monitoring system is much more relaxed. This just happened with the latest release, which is 0.11, that went wide. It is so much improved, especially on chill and standard speed modes. If you're using hurry mode, you'll find that the camera won't let you look away or get distracted very much. Chill mode, on the other hand, is especially safe to use, and you'll notice a huge difference in how strict the camera tracks your eyes and your head. You can look at the center screen for a lot longer while you're in chill mode. It's actually surprising how much you can look away, so I'd encourage you to try it out. This relaxed system applies on city streets and highways, and it's a welcome change for those who are intimately familiar with how safe FSD is. The third improvement is the ability to go in reverse. There are moments when FSD may get stuck in an alley or trapped on a street in a dead end. Well, v14 Lite finally has the ability to go in reverse. Witnessing this new behavior in person is like magic. It will back up to perform a 3-point turn, and in some cases, it will even become a 5-point or 7-point turn. There are times when you may be parked on the side of the road, and let's say you turn on FSD without a destination, or you have a destination plugged in. I had a situation where there was a car in front of me, and it started to go in reverse when I had FSD turned on. FSD immediately responded to the car in front of me that was backing up, and it also proceeded to back up in order to avoid getting hit. It was one of the coolest things to see. I didn't catch it on camera, but it's something that I could easily repeat, and I'll probably post a video on. This is a welcome change that feels like magic compared to the previous version, where it could never go in reverse at all. There's also something magical about parking at your final destination, where the car puts itself in reverse automatically to go into a parking spot. While it may not be perfect every single time, it's really fun and special to see this happening with older vehicles that could never do it before. The fourth major improvement is the handling of edge cases. As confirmed by many others on social media, FSD v14 Lite has the ability to respond to more edge cases than it ever did before. This includes going through drive-thrus, if you want to consider that an edge case, avoiding obstacles in the road like roadkill, tires, or other large objects, responding to vehicles that cut into your lane or drift slowly toward your vehicle. There are situations where FSD will slam on the brakes appropriately to avoid a collision that you may not have seen or reacted to as quickly. And there are also situations where the car will do the right thing for one-way roads, blocked off roads, construction workers, and emergency vehicles. I'm not going to say that the car is perfect in every situation or that it does the right thing, but it definitely has an improved ability to handle a larger variety of edge cases. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to witness this in the moment, and I'd love to hear from you if you have v14 Lite to know what types of situations you've come across that have really impressed you here. The last major improvement has been covered a little bit already, and that is railroad tracks, speed bumps, and navigation. v14 Lite has a new ability to slow down reliably for train tracks and railroad crossings. I'm talking about when the tracks are first identified, which I believe is incorporated into the navigation data. And this is also why I'm including the navigation data as one of the improvements in this category. When I was first testing with the second release candidate of v14 Lite at 2:30 a.m. in the morning, FSD turned left on a very busy road really close to an intersection. It had to cross over 2 left turn lanes in a very short distance. If there had been any sort of traffic, it wouldn't have been able to do it. So I went back the next day to test it where there were more cars, and no matter what I did, I couldn't get the car to take the same path again. It refused very strongly to turn left on that exact same road while the other cars were around. I tried to line it up exactly as I had the night before, but after 5 attempts, I gave up. At the last moment, as I was driving manually to do the exact maneuver myself, which is challenging and takes extra time to wait for a clear path. Basically, the traffic there needs to be a large enough gap to pull your car out. I decided to tease FSD and turn it on while my car was slightly jutting out into the road. The navigation data was still indicating another path to take going behind me, so I thought I could force it to change the path by nudging the accelerator pedal forward just a little bit. By forcing the car onto that busy road, I figured it would change the route for sure, as it usually does, to allow it to go where it's lined up to go already. But even with that extra nudging, the path would not change. This was new, and it was really impressive to see. I can also understand how this would be a drawback for some people. For example, if the nav is strongly dictating where you can and cannot go, and if you want it to go down a specific path for a certain reason, outside of the crazy example I just provided, then I can understand where this would be a major disappointment. But the fact remains that the intelligent navigation is a new change that I would consider an improvement for safety. Now, let's talk about the future of Hardware 3. This question came up during Tesla's second quarter earnings call last week, where a question was asked about the hardware replacement for older vehicles. Elon responded that any car with vision only and Hardware 3 would have to be upgraded in the future. He didn't clarify when, but in the past he's mentioned that this would happen when unsupervised becomes possible. And he also mentioned in the past how micro factories would be needed to avoid bogging down the service centers. This time, however, he didn't talk about any of the logistics or the timing, but he did mention how the hardware replacement could be a newly revised version of AI4 or even with AI5. He mentioned how the revised AI4 computer would be in production in the middle of 2027 and how AI5 would reach volume production for Optimus in 2027 as well. So I think it's safe to say that AI5 will be released for vehicles in late 2027 or more likely available in 2028. It makes a lot more sense to design a slimmed down version of AI5 that can fit in the older cars. This would require the least amount of engineering work, since redesigning AI4 to fit in a Hardware 3 car could prove difficult. So as I've speculated in several of my earlier videos, I believe this will be the most likely path forward for Hardware 3 vehicles when it comes to a hardware swap. Regarding Tesla's stock, this is pure speculation on my part, but I'm optimistic that the stock will recover with flying colors. It always does, but the real question is when it will happen again. I think this is likely to occur with some exciting news, such as a potential stock merger with SpaceX, for example, or it could coincide with the release of Optimus, which I'm sure Elon is putting an immense amount of pressure on the engineering teams to bring to market. It must be incredibly difficult to produce a consumer-oriented B2C, also known as business to consumer, version of Optimus that can be sold at a decent price. Elon has mentioned in the past that a robot like Optimus would be sold for around $20,000. It's less than the cost of a new car, and Elon has been confident that the utility provided would justify the price for a lot of households. So unlike the Model S and X that first launched when Tesla started doing business, which only applied to upper-class families and provided seed money for the company, Tesla's goal with Optimus is to produce it at a lower cost so that it can be sold on a much larger scale. I'm really optimistic that this will happen. However, I'm also a bit of a realist with this sort of stuff, since Elon promised a $35,000 Model 3 when it first launched, only to be proven wrong, where that version of the vehicle didn't get released until a year after its first release. And by the time the car came out, the battery and interior features were so far inferior to the other model designs that it didn't really make a lot of sense to purchase. And then if you look at the prices mentioned for the Cybertruck before it entered production with the launch series, I don't think I need to say much more about that one. However, with the pricing situations for new products set aside, I think we have some exciting new products on the horizon, including Cybercab, which will revolutionize transportation in a big way. And everyone always forgets about the battery storage and energy focus at Tesla, along with the incredible self-driving software, which is the best example of real-world AI available. I'm very excited about this, and it always amazes me how so many people have no idea about it. When I'm driving or riding down the road, especially on the highway, I always look around and wonder if people realize how automated my car is. I don't have to worry about anything at all. That includes steering, avoiding other cars, merging onto highways, changing lanes, getting off at exits. The car does everything all on its own. I don't even need to know which roads to take. I really don't think anyone has any idea about that. Or if they do, they don't really understand it. It's just a matter of time until the pricing can come down to a point where more people can experience it. And I really think the Cybercab is that product. So when it comes to the stock, it's definitely a long-term play. Many would argue that Tesla is overvalued and not worth the investment. However, I'm fully convinced that patience pays off. Elon Musk almost always delivers after long periods of time. He may be off with his timelines, but he doesn't give up. And that's a very rare quality in CEOs today. Elon also has a tendency to enter into his evil Elon mode, which some would argue is very bad and scary, but I think it drives innovation and significantly reduces the time to market for various technologies. And because of that, along with the incredible products that Tesla creates, I'm very bullish with Tesla stock, and I would advocate for anyone to continue investing in the stock. Are there better opportunities to invest in right now with your money? Yes, I believe there are many of them, like Amazon, Google, Meta, and Nvidia, to name a few. But you can't go wrong with Tesla if you have a 10 to 20 year time horizon. All of that probably confused you more than it helped you, but that's just my 2 cents on the stock and the future situation for Tesla. Thanks as always for watching, and let me know your comments below. Please subscribe and hit the like button. And until the next one, have a great day.